Russian President Vladimir Putin has made the next move on the game theory chessboard, admitting at an investment forum in Moscow today that no one can prohibit the use of Bitcoin, and even mentioning it as an instrument to bypass US dollar sanctions. Today we dive into the epic game of chess being played out on the global stage, where Bitcoin isn't just another piece on the board, it's the wild card, the unpredictable, decentralized force reshaping the game itself. Plus, is the incoming Trump administration seeing Bitcoin as the new oil for the 21st century? Could a bold Bitcoin move on behalf of the US government keep America the wealthiest nation for the next 1,000 years? Breaking news today as Russian President Vladimir Putin made some very interesting remarks about Bitcoin at an investment forum in Moscow.
The share of the US in the world economy is reducing, and it means that the influence of dollar on world economic processes is also reducing. That is why, quite naturally, we see processes with the use of other instruments. For instance, Bitcoin. Who can prohibit the use of it? No one. Or the use of other electronic ways of settlements. No one can ban the use of them because these are new technologies. Anything can happen with dollar. These instruments will continue developing because everyone will try to reduce costs and to make these instruments more reliable. This is inevitable. And dollar has nothing to do with it. But if we see that the use of dollar is reduced if they do it themselves, they will undermine the basis of their own economic dominance.
So there's a few notable things about these remarks from Putin. First of all, the obvious. He states that while the US dollar is losing influence around the world, Bitcoin is naturally gaining influence due to its decentralized nature and no nation having the ability to prohibit or ban its use. It seems like Putin has been doing his homework and realizes the utility of a truly incorruptible digital currency outside the purview and reach of any individual nation or group of nations. Putin also mentions that the development of this technology will inevitably lead to lower costs and greater reliability, alluding to his understanding of Bitcoin's programmability and its gaining strength and security as it becomes more widely adopted over time. This is the international game theory of Bitcoin playing out just as we've talked about in previous videos. An easy way to think about game theory as it pertains to Bitcoin is a giant international game of chess where every single nation and individual is playing the same game. Every nation makes strategic decisions regarding Bitcoin while considering what other nations might do. In this game, each country has to decide whether to adopt, regulate, ban, or ignore Bitcoin, knowing that their choice affects and is affected by other nations' choices. Here's some keys in how the game could play out in some scenarios. First, we have first mover advantage. Countries that adopt Bitcoin early could gain a competitive edge in global finance, attracting investment, innovation, and economic activity. Others might hesitate, fearing risk like volatility or losing control, but they risk falling behind if Bitcoin becomes widely used. Second, we have strategic hedging. Some nations might accumulate Bitcoin as a backup plan in case the current financial system, based on the US dollar, fails or shifts. If other nations also start doing this, Bitcoin's value and influence grows, making early adopters winners. Third, we have cooperation versus competition. Nations could cooperate to set global rules for Bitcoin or use it as a neutral currency for trade. Alternatively, they could compete by mining Bitcoin, building Bitcoin-friendly policies, or they could ban it in an attempt to protect their traditional monetary systems. Four, we have what's called the prisoner's dilemma. If one country adopts Bitcoin and others don't, that country gains an advantage, like attracting wealth or avoiding sanctions in the case of Russia or Iran. If no one adopts Bitcoin, everyone sticks with the status quo. If everyone adopts Bitcoin, the financial system evolves, but traditional powers lose some control. And finally, number 5, we have FOMO, or fear of missing out. As more countries adopt Bitcoin or use it strategically, others may feel pressured to follow, even if they're initially skeptical. This creates a domino effect, accelerating global Bitcoin adoption. So in short, countries are like chess players trying to decide if Bitcoin is a winning move or a risky gamble. Some see it as a way to gain independence and power, while others see it as a threat to their control. The game is about finding the right balance while staying ahead, or at least not falling behind other players. This is the game theory of Bitcoin that is accelerating and gaining intensity as time goes on. Putin's latest remarks are just another move on this chessboard. So is the incoming Trump administration's support of Bitcoin dominance in the US. If the Trump administration goes ahead with the proposed plan for a US strategic stockpile of Bitcoin, that would be a massive and aggressive advance on the chessboard. Trump has also made comments about the ability of Bitcoin to offset the massive and growing US debt problem. Michael Saylor posted this graphic yesterday showing the levels of adoption the US could implement under Trump, with the note that the deal of the century is Trump max Bitcoin. These projections are based on Saylor's own conservative estimate that Bitcoin will be worth upwards of $13 million per coin by 2045. Note that that's in today's value. Trump max Bitcoin that Saylor is alluding to would mean the US would purchase 4 million Bitcoin and convert 75% as surplus to a total of a whopping 6 million Bitcoin by 2045, which could theoretically pay off $81 trillion in debt. This kind of aggressive and ballsy move on behalf of the US government would make the US the wealthiest nation in the world for the next 1,000 years. Now, obviously, the chances of the US government implementing such a plan are slim, but there are whispers that the Trump administration could be starting to see Bitcoin as a legitimate strategy to offset their massive debt. Macro analyst Luke Groman was on Natalie Brunell's Coin Stories recently, and he laid out his theory that the Trump administration could be eyeing Bitcoin as the new oil.
But my sort of base case right now is that Bitcoin is the new oil. And the reason the Trump administration is so interested in this is I think they see exactly what Treasury and Paul Ryan are talking about, and that they're going to use Bitcoin like they did to oil back in 73, 74, which is, yes, the US absolutely has a debt problem. Even Treasury's admitting it now. Even the Fed's admitting it now. Everyone knows it. And it's very acute. And we need balance sheet desperately. We need balance sheet anywhere that is not Fed balance sheet. And so we need a way to weaken the dollar while strengthening the dollar system. Mm-hmm. And you look at this and you go, gosh, this checks all the boxes. If we inflate the heck out of Bitcoin, you're going to increase stable coins. You're going to increase stablecoin demand for T-bills. What that will do, because Bitcoin is a global asset, is it will draw in dollars from around the world into T-bills, into stable coins. But at the same time, the dollar will be collapsing against Bitcoin. And it will be, ultimately, you get Bitcoin high enough, it's going to be pretty inflationary, right? People are going to be, and stimulative. So that's what I think Trump may have meant by Bitcoin is the new oil. That's my sort of working hypothesis. I'm waiting and looking for something that would refute that. Thus far in the new administration, I'm not seeing anything other than sort of, okay, I think I'm onto something here. But let's see. So long-winded explanation, but I think it's important that this combination of Trump Treasury, Paul Ryan, the stablecoin demonstration in the Treasury report of like, hey, look, the higher Bitcoin goes, the higher stablecoins go, the higher T-bill demand for stablecoins go. I think they're looking at it in this regard. I really do.
So Groman's base case is that the Trump administration is seeing Bitcoin as checking all the boxes and filling the role that oil did for the US economy in the 1970s. If this is accurate, get prepared for the game to get really interesting in the next few years. I'll leave you with this post from David Bailey of Bitcoin Magazine, who was a huge part of the Trump administration's embrace and support of Bitcoin during the campaign. Commenting on Putin's remarks, Bailey says, "It couldn't be more clear what's happening. It must be a national priority to stand up the strategic Bitcoin reserve in the first 100 days of the Trump admin. We need an aggressive plan to grow USA's proportional ownership of the Bitcoin supply." I couldn't agree more. Hopefully the Trump admin sees the writing on the wall and makes the bold and aggressive move on the chessboard as soon as possible. And that means there's still time for you to make your move on the game theory chessboard. Visit swan.com or download the app by searching Swan Bitcoin in the App Store and start buying Bitcoin in minutes. You get your first $10,000 in Bitcoin purchases with zero fees. Visit swan.com and front-run nation-state FOMO today. That's it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like this video, share it with a friend or family member, and subscribe to the channel for more high-signal Bitcoin content. Thanks for watching, and remember, TikTok next block.